episode of Fermented Adventure the Podcast features Dylan Beyer of Shanky's Whip. Haven't heard of Shanky's Whip? Listen to the podcast, get all the details, and go out and buy your own bottle. This has become one of our favorites. Be sure to reach out to Dylan and Shanky's Whip and let them know what you thought about the podcast. Cheers! Hello, ladies and gentlemen, craft spirit enthusiasts, and those interested in the intoxicating world of craft distilleries, cideries, meaderies, wineries, and the occasional foray into breweries. It's Rich Shane, and welcome to Fermented Adventure, the podcast, where we bring you the fascinating people that are making the mash, fermenting, distilling, bottling, pouring, and delivering to you some of the finest libations in the world. Before we get started, here are a few housekeeping items. Thank you for bringing the podcast into wherever you are and whatever you're doing. We truly are grateful that you have chosen to listen and make us part of your day. It would mean the world to us if you left a 5-star review. This helps us climb in the rankings, and it makes it easier for others to find us. Don't hesitate to leave us your comments as well. If the podcast didn't meet your expectations, tell us why. We're always striving to improve. You can find us at fermentedadventure.com. We are on Instagram and Facebook as Fermented Adventure. Email us at fermentedadventure@gmail.com. All right, FA Nation, let's meet our guest. He's Dylan Beyer. I'm Rich Shane. This is Fermented Adventure, the podcast. Dylan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Dylan, I'm stoked. I'm enthused. Shanky's Whip. We get to talk Shanky's Whip today. What I want to know and what I want to share with our listeners and those that have not heard of Shanky's yet, how did it all get started?
Well, that is a great story. It is a fun one. I'm glad to be talking about it with you here today. I understand we both have our drams here in front of us, so let's be sure to sip as we say. And Shanky's Whip it's a really fun product. It came out about 2 years ago now. And the whole idea behind this one is that people often like the idea of Irish whiskey. They like to shoot Irish whiskey. There's a lot of high energy occasions around it. But there isn't always the best flavor associated with that. And we thought it was prime time to introduce a Black Irish whiskey, Black Irish liqueur blend that highlights some of the best parts of beer and spirits from Ireland, being black like stout, it is smooth like cream, and it is Irish like whiskey, black, smooth, and Irish. Shanky's Whip.
We met at Bar Convent last year, and this is one of those things that just blew Dawn and I away. It was one of those things where we said, what took this so long to come to the market, and how come we hadn't had it yet? And you're introducing this to everybody's palate, but you talk about what it is, but what were just some of the thought processes as far as saying, this is something the market needs, we're just going to get this started?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to trying to find some of the things that people are most attracted to in Irish spirits, Irish beers. So even if you just look at that liquid on shelf on a bar, it's that deep, rich, black liquid. It's very eye-catching, very appealing. People like stout beer. People love Guinness. I think that is almost synonymous with Irish as a Guinness. And so we have captured that color of a deep stout in that whiskey product. And Irish cream is super popular. So we decided that distilling something with some whey in it. So there's actually some spirit distilled from whey in that bottle where we're getting some of that natural cream flavoring from. And then a nice approachable whiskey base. So at only 33% alcohol by volume, we figured this is going to be a much more approachable, fun, sessionable Irish whiskey blend that people could have a lot of fun with.
What is some of your experiences that rolling this product, introducing this product, what is some of the feedback that you get when people try this for the first time? What was it like for you to try for the first time?
Well, I have a sweet tooth, so this was an immediate favorite for me. As soon as we first started trialing some of the different liquids and seeing what was going to actually go into the final product. But with Shanky's Whip, time and time again, and maybe this was your first experience walking up to us at Bar Convent, Brooklyn, is the packaging is the showstopper. People see the bottle, they see the label. It doesn't conform to whiskey norms. It is very colorful, very bright, very unusual, very whimsical. and people come by and say, I gotta ask what this is. This just looks so bizarre. For those that are just listening and haven't seen it, it has this crazy ostrich on the front of the label with this Irishman riding a chariot behind it with big red banners. So the packaging is what brings people in. It's got that nice custom bottle, Ireland embossed up on the shoulder, Shanky and Shireman, the whiskey company, embossed around the foot. So that is the immediate hook that brings people in. And then maybe this was the case for you. As soon as they sniff it, they're sold.
What I can relate to is it's all about fun. There's nothing, you don't put on airs with Shanky's Whip. You see it. Like, I'm thinking if I go to Ireland, there's somebody in some sort of cart that there's an ostrich in front and they're riding. I mean, there must be some sort of lore for how this all came about as the logo and the brand that you see first.
That is one of the big questions we get. People will say, who is Shanky? Is that an ostrich? Is it an emu? What is the story here? What's going on? So the story of Shanky and how the brand came about to use that namesake is just a crazy piece of old Irish folklore that we have heard in our own travels. But essentially the story goes, there was a guy named Shanky, and he used to like to race horses, and he also liked to make whiskey. So he was known to win these horse races quite a bit and then have some, why don't we call it, over enthusiastic celebrations. And he was ultimately banned from horse racing at that track. But by means of a loophole through that ban, he came back with an ostrich to the racetrack one day. And he said, well, you said I was banned from racing horses. This is not a horse. So we have captured that story in this look, in this vintage matchbox styling of a label. And it's just something really fun that people like to say. Shanky's Whip is just a weird name for a product. So I think it's something that stands out.
You are so on track with this and the branding, the lore, the fun. And for everything that Shanky's is, it's only on the market for 2 years. I mean, how is this, talk about the expansion of the brand, of the product, and, where people are finding it right now.
It's doing very well in the US. We have distribution in all 50 states, which is great. We found it to really start getting traction in every part of the spirits business, from high energy chilled shots all the way through like high end mixology, people making espresso martinis with this, probably one of the most popular on trend drinks that we're seeing right now. So it really captures a very wide audience in that respect. And then geographically, this product's already all over the world. We're already in more than 75 countries. And as soon as people taste it, they take a fondness to it. There's nothing else like it on the market. I think you have to be different to be successful now in the sea of noise that exists in the spirits business. So it's super exciting to see Shanky's Whip be able to accomplish all that in such a short period of time.
In that short period of time, you realize you put this together, you have this product. What have been some of those aha moments for you to say, we are on the right track, this is being received, and we've got something here?
It helps us reach well outside of whiskey. So it is as wide of a gateway for people to enter through. We have the natural flavors of vanilla, natural flavors of caramel, cream. They're all nostalgic, very well-liked profiles. So every time someone takes a sip, they usually come back with their own tasting note of something very nostalgic of, oh, you know what, this tastes like the Werther's that my grandmother used to give me. Or, oh, this tastes like it would be delicious in a Coca-Cola. Or I would love to put this in my coffee. And those are all ritualized types of flavors and drink or treat occasions. And you don't usually hear that when someone sips a spirit. They usually go, notes of oak and, this is really rich or high proof or whatever it is. This is fun. It's easy sipping. It's enjoyable. And it's just very widely appealing to any type of whiskey or non-whiskey consumer.
I think to the point you're making, it straddles this line to where if you love whiskey and this is, your Irish whiskey interest, there's that for you. If you're into liqueurs, that provides that there. And then there's so many nuances of flavor that come out to really, really expand or explore other people's palates. And, what are some of those unique experiences you've had just, having people taste this and giving you their feedback so far?
Most unique experiences always come by doing these shows where we're sampling it out with folks, either in the trade or consumers, or I walk into a bar and I see it and I'm not wearing my Shanky's whip or my marketing hat. I'm wearing my Dylan is going to go have a drink at a bar with his friend's hat, and seeing what genuine opinions are. But earlier this spring, we were up at Westchester Food and Wine, and we were positioned next to a soft serve ice cream truck by happenstance. And people were taking their ice cream cones and pouring their samples of Shanky's whip over the cones. Some people were even poking a little hole so they could fill it and have this like ice cream shot. And that was completely unprovoked. It wasn't something that we have thought of ourselves. People just organically started doing it, and it was catching on like crazy. And people love doing dessert type of drinks, or in this case, a physical ice cream cone with Shanky's whip, which I've been in the business for a minute now, and I've never seen the spirit product get used just directly in ice cream.
What I can tell you is when I try this, and I think food-wise too, I'm curious to make a barbecue sauce out of this and to see how well this will play with, again, you've got the whiskey element, you've got the coffee element, you've got the sweet element that really would make a gate. So if anybody wants to steal that or has already done that, we'd love to hear from you on that. And then this is great for sipping. This is great for cocktails. You've talked about meeting with bartenders. Talk about some of those standout cocktails that people are, you mentioned the espresso martini, but are there other cocktails that are being consumed and created from the Shanky's whip? You've got this amazing Instagram, social media, Facebook presence. Dawn does the TikTok stuff. So if the ostrich is dancing on the TikTok thing, I haven't seen that yet. But talk about, some of the cocktails or things that you're discovering that people are doing with cocktails and the like.
Just when I thought I've heard it all with Shanky's whip drinks, starting out very simple from, mix it with Coke, it tastes like a vanilla Coke. Mix it with root beer, it makes it taste like a root beer float. Chilled shot, meat in a glass. Just when I thought I've heard it all, a bartender will tell me something like, probably one of the more surprising ones was, I mixed this with pineapple juice in my bar and put a maraschino cherry in it. And I thought, there's no way how is that going to taste? I said, I'll be right back. He went and grabbed a mixer and came back and poured a little pineapple Shanky's whip for me. And it tasted like a pineapple upside down cake. So the flavor profile of Shanky's whip just collaborates so well with a massive breadth of different mixers or sodas or any type of mixology people are really thinking up. And that particular bar had a pineapple upside down cake shot on their menu because of the vanilla notes and Shanky's that played so well off of the citrus and fruity notes.
This is such a really strong, diverse product. And if people are hearing about this for the first time, and you said you're available in all 50 states, they need to run out and buy a bottle for themselves to really experience and play with all the different flavor profiles you get here. While you're expressing that pineapple upside down, I'm thinking, all right, I got some pineapple. I'm going to work on that next. But even tasting this, so you said this is 33%,
yep.
Right? So, we're talking 66% ABV or proof, excuse me. And this does, so the first thing I get about this is you get this clean approach, but it's a very clean, you get the whiskey front and center to me, which really comes through. But then you go on this ride with the caramel notes and the vanilla notes and the coffee notes. And, you mentioned Werther's. I get this more of a butterscotch kind of that butterscotch candy because of the viscosity and how this sits on the palate. And it plays in so many different areas. I also find you get the like a burnt marshmallow or a very toasted marshmallow. And all this comes together. And it's so much fun. And I can only imagine what you do every day, Dylan. It's not, you wake up, you got the bills to pay, but you're having fun with this. what was this like for you when you said, wow, I get to have fun with this is what I do every day?
Yeah, and the important thing here is to highlight that there's an amazing team that is behind Shanky's Whip. So I have a very fun job in getting to work on the marketing and doing everything in the field and getting out there and getting to see how people are experiencing the Shanky's Whip brand. But also getting to work directly for our two brilliant creators here on this brand, Elwyn Gladstone, Mark Teasdale, have a tremendous track record of making these new to world smash hit brands. And this being the most recent and next one in that extensive catalog of spirit successes is incredibly exciting. To me, it's the next new thing. I could see this product being very, very big. And I don't really hear any major issues when I go out to bars, I go out to restaurants. So someone always has a gripe with something, right? Shanky's Whip just seems to warm hearts. You know, people are open to it. They love the flavor. And it just suits so many different occasions that the sky is the limit on this one for right now. I'm just very happy with how things are going.
Pardon the interruption. If you like what you hear, if you love what you're hearing, please share the podcast. Please take a screenshot of the podcast, post it on your social media, tag us just to let everybody else know about Fermented Adventure, the podcast. We'd be grateful for your help to grow our podcast. I could certainly see you just add a little bit of club soda to this. I even think adding maybe some ginger ale or some Barrow's Intense Ginger and making a cocktail from there. This makes a great old fashioned. It's so versatile. And I don't mean to, beat a dead ostrich or so to speak, or a dead horse. But, in a way, when you find a product like this and you discover something like this, and this becomes like that, wow, this is like my favorite. Why isn't everybody drinking this? Why isn't everybody drinking this yet?
And you just named another cocktail right there. Every time we go back and forth here, you remind me of another cocktail that's been starting to get some traction. But an Irish Mule has been doing well in some bars where you mix Shanky's Whip with some ginger beer and you put a splash of lime in there. And it's a delicious, refreshing, very flavorful cocktail. And it's easy for bartenders to use, which I think is one of the major appeals. You take one in one, a mixer and Shanky's Whip, and suddenly you have this full flavored cocktail experience that just took 5 seconds to make. So you also get to do that at home, and it's so easy to do there. That's why you're starting to see people post a lot more about it on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, because it's a fun product to make new recipes with and cocktails with, because every time you try something new, it's a completely different flavor experience.
What I find for me is having people over and being able to share something they've never experienced and watching their faces light up and go, wait, what is this? What am I drinking? Or I think, when you meet bartenders and you're out on the road and they have this in their arsenal, I think right now it's almost for them like a little secret weapon. And I love those, bartenders that, look, you've got to find a way in the sea of bartenders. If you're having this high-end bar program, you've got to find a way to stand out. You've got to have that secret weapon in your arsenal where, first of all, you have the conversation. All right, Shanky's Whip, what is Shanky's Whip? And they can talk about it. And then that cocktail kind of stands out going, all right, I want to try that. Just make that cocktail for me. I just want to see that. And then the next thing you know, they have 2 or 3 of those same cocktails. That's what I'm saying. You have such a fun job. I mean, this is, like when the guy said, 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese. I mean, he created the Big Mac and now he's pushing the Big Mac everywhere. You're pushing, the opportunity for people to just have fun with this.
That's what we do here. That's what we package up. We package up fun. That's the main goal. And when it comes to those bartenders and being out on the road and just looking at a brand as a whole, for me, there is one marketing metric, one marketing indicator that tells you whether or not a brand is going to do well and be a success. It's not points of distribution. It is not any type of pricing analysis, velocity, you name it. When it comes to the super academic stuff, for me, it's when a bartender gets a tattoo of your brand logo. That is a massive marketing indicator. And very early on, we saw a bartender with the Shanky's chariot and ostrich tattooed to his forearm. I said, here we go. We got one.
Okay. I'm tattoo free right now, but you're giving me ideas.
We got to change that. Yeah.
Or are there at least temporary ones that I can put on and wash off?
Yeah, we're actually working on a batch of temporary ones right now. So you'll get some of the first ones when those are finished up.
Jill and I promise. You make the temporary ones, my mom will be okay with that. Knowing her son didn't run around with a tattoo somewhere. That's like, oh my God, he's got a tattoo.
Well, yeah, we'll start with the temporary. We can work our way up to the real one.
That'll work. I am curious. I mean, this is made in Ireland. What was the reception in Ireland for those, that knew Irish whiskey, and this was something maybe new to them? What was it like for that to be rolled out in Ireland?
Rolling out in Ireland, I think, was not always the first step for Shanky's Whip. I think it was something that wound up coming later on, and we were very impressed and surprised with how it took. It took off in Tesco's. People are excited about the flavor profile. I think anywhere you go, it's going to trigger different nostalgic feelings, thoughts about where the product tastes like and what they remember it as. But it's doing pretty well so far, especially as a chilled shot. I think that's really how people are having it over there.
I think it's interesting because it sounds to me like you rolled it out outside of Ireland, and then they said, wait, we should be drinking this, right? It says made in Ireland.
Yeah, the made in Ireland piece is really what brings people, and people like Irish products. They like Irish beers, Irish whiskeys. So like I said before, just combining some of the best parts of all those different elements into one bottle really provided a nice offering.
I'm sipping this now and we're talking, and this is just like an inventor's dream to me, because as I put more on my palate, I'm thinking, all right, how would this work with, let's say, a beer cocktail, which you don't see a lot of? And let's say you take that stout and you add a little bit to, maybe you do a float or something, and you create some of a cocktail like that. Have you seen anybody use this in conjunction with beer yet?
Yeah. So a classic order, if you go into a pub, would be a pint of stout and then a glass of whiskey. So you can nurse both back and forth. When it comes to Shanky's Whip, if you order yourself a stout and then a shot of Shanky's Whip with that, it is just a pairing made in heaven. You could do a bomb type of drink where you're physically dropping that Shanky's Whip shot into the pint of stout. I would still enjoy sipping that slowly and enjoying it, not necessarily pounding the whole thing to the face. But with a stout, with other milkier, creamy types of beers, it's absolutely delicious.
I'm coining the phrase like a whip stout. And now I'm going to get that.
Great.
I'm going to get that trademarked if that's not done yet.
Get that tattooed.
Are you surprised? Stout. Are you surprised, or are there areas in the world that are consuming Shankies that you look at and go, wow, we're big there, and that just seems a little surprising?
You can never hedge all your bets on just one market. So if something doesn't do well in one place, it doesn't mean that it isn't going to do incredibly well in another. So for us, it was always important to try many different places, try many different marketing tactics, but always with that same core singular flavor with Shanky's Whip Original. So in the US, it does very well in the Great Lake territory. Michigan, Wisconsin, sweet flavor profiles up there. People really like those sweeter products, and it is killing it. So we go and we visit there several times a year, and it's just awesome to see how much it is taking off up there. In terms of other countries, it's taken very well in South Africa. They're doing a ton with it. Really, you name it. Like I said, it's a list of almost 80 countries now. I can't even think of all of them off the top of my head, but it's been going well anywhere that we tend to launch it.
You share something that you just said, original. Is there another expression that we can expect down the road?
So while you can expect some surprises coming down the line out of Shanky's Whip, I don't think you'll see a new flavor anytime soon. Of course, there's always opportunities for different things down the line, but things are going so well with Shanky's Whip right now. And the flavor is just so well dialed into what it is. We want to keep going with what's been tried and true.
All right. I'm putting this out there to any distilleries that might be listening right now to the podcast. Get yourself a barrel that held bourbon into it, put Shanky's in there, fill that barrel up. So now we get an additional bourbon barrel-aged Shanky that they can put on their bar. But then let's throw some bourbon back in there or some rye whiskey and play with that. And I don't know if that's been anything that you've experienced with Shanky's yet, but I think, again, how fun this is to play with. You have a lot of options to do.
It's interesting that you say that, because where we started noticing it taking on some cocktail menus wasn't replacing other whiskeys at the bar. So if there was a bar that had an Irish coffee, say with Powers Irish whiskey as the core whiskey in that cocktail, they weren't then replacing the Powers with Shanky's Whip. They were adding Shanky's Whip on top of it as a modifier. So some people are dialing up the alcohol of Shanky's Whip with an extra splash of bourbon or Irish whiskey, like you mentioned, or just topping Shanky's Whip onto a cocktail that might already have whiskey in it. So it can be standalone, it can be with mixers, or it can be with other spirits.
Look, I'm a huge, we're kind of gushing and we're big fans, and we love seeing you at Bar Convent. You got the ostrich there. It's so playful. You can take pictures with the ostrich. I will tell you, you've got some of the most desirable merch out there. Can people find some of this stuff on your website, or can they purchase through some sort of an online store?
People can find all of our merch on our website, shankyswhip.com. They can actually buy the whiskey through that website as well. They can't buy the ostrich on the internet just yet. That's a one of one at the moment. We call him Shooter. He has been quite the celebrity, as you saw at BCB. His road schedule is busier than mine. He's going to more events than I even am. And maybe he tricked you at first too. People just think it's real when they walk past. And for those people that are listening, it's about a 5 foot tall stuffed fake ostrich. This isn't a taxidermied real animal, but it is a realistic stuffed animal that was sporting one of our Shanky's Whip shirts. And that was a showstopper. People stopped. The amount of times that people tried to steal Shooter, he's going to need personal security detail, I think, at future events. He's the real celebrity of the show, if I'm being honest.
Here's what I know. That emu thing that an insurance company has, Shooter will take him any day. I mean, it wouldn't even be a contest.
Yeah, watch out. We are coming for the insurance mascot world in terms of notoriety and popularity.
Dylan, I mean, I would love, next time we're around and about, just sitting down and just enjoying Shanky's together at a bar or one of these events that you have going on, and understanding and hearing more of these stories you may have to tell. But is there anything we haven't talked about on the podcast today? Anything you wanted to share with the listener about Shanky's or you?
Shanky's Whip is it's one product in our portfolio. So maybe it's worth mentioning that we make a handful of new to world brands outside of Shanky's Whip. So that helps when it comes to building out cocktail programs with different bars and things like that. So we have a vermouth line that's called Hotel Starlino. Did you get a chance to try any of those aperitivos and stuff at Bar Convent Brooklyn?
I would say no.
We have a tequila range as well called Butterfly Cannon. That one was really popular at BCB, but it is a butterfly pea flower infused tequila, and it tastes of natural clementine and prickly pear. So when you make a margarita with the blue tequila, actually I have a bottle right over here. You can see the color in this. Natural
you did
butterfly
not have that. I love the bottle.
Flower coloring. It makes a color changing margarita from this blue to a light pink. So it is just something that when people order at bars, it creates a lot of order envy and it looks wild. So maybe we'll get you a bottle of that at another time.
You guys, I mean, I see the packaging that you do. It's so standout, unique. There's a thought that goes into every detail of what you put in this bottle.
So, and packaging is what first brought me into this. So I can tell you a very short and funny story of how I even got here. You know a product called the Kraken Black Spiced Rum?
Yeah.
So that package has those like Victorian rings on the shoulder. And that is another product that our founders, Ellen Gladstone and Mark Teasdale, created. And when I was in school, went to a state school, if you went to a party, you couldn't just bring a bottle of booze and leave it on a table. It would get totally drank and used by people there. So I had to keep my bottle with me. And I always carried my keys on my hip with a carabiner, which happened to be able to fit right through that loop of that package. So I would keep it on my hip, like thought I was some kind of hipster pirate or something, I guess. And once it came time to graduate and I moved on and I went to grad school, but I maintained that tradition with Kraken and that clip. And when I graduated, I said, this is the coolest packaging. This is the coolest brand. Kraken's another brand with tons of tattoos and bartender stuff like that. I just said, I need to meet the people that created this because it is just one of the coolest brands I've ever seen. And the packaging is awesome. And those people wound up being Elwin and Mark. And now so many years later and so many brand hits later, still working with them, and Shanky's Whip being the latest launch and iteration of those new to world products.
This is such a creative brain trust of really exceptional thinking people. And I can feel that creativity and energy just as you're expressing your experiences and how you were introduced, at least to the company. Is this when does this become a publicly traded company? I don't know, right?
Well, that's very, very kind of you to say. But it's, like I said, even just with the brand DNA of Shanky's Whip, it's about having fun. It's about making things that are different. It's about making things that are visually appealing and don't just blend into the sea of things that are out there. And it worked for me as whatever, a college senior, able to buy my first legal bottle of booze and seeing a bottle of Kraken rum with those rings and saying, that's cool. I can clip that to my belt. And then that ultimately leading me into the world of spirits marketing.
Well, it's a great world that you're in. Thank you so much for all you do and sharing some time to talk about Shanky's today. We're grateful for your time, and thanks for being a friend of Fermented Adventure. If you're anywhere near a bar, near a store, pick up this bottle. You'll find it. It's easy to find, and it's colorful. It's fun, and this is what you should be serving next or drinking next on your individual Fermented Adventure. So, Dylan, thanks so much for today, and we look forward to seeing you again and just enjoying the Shanky's experience.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate you having us and being a fan of Shanky's and spreading the good word of the brand. So hope to see you out there on the road again soon.
Looking forward to it and can't wait to be tatted up next time.
Yeah, let's do it. Can't wait.
Thanks, Dylan.
Thank you.